It's a great pleasure to have you today on the show. To talk about marketing, to talk about services that you do, video content, AI, a lot. There's a lot of different things I like to talk about with you today. For people that don't know, Lee Judge. So I appreciate you being on the show today.
Thanks for having me. Great to
Thank
be
you.
here.
Thank you. We'll include obviously social media links if you're listening or watching this episode for you to go and check out Lee and his company, Content Monsta, which of course we're going to dive in deeper today. Obviously, talk about their services, products, what they do. But your background, I mean, that's where obviously we'd like to start. Um, can you talk about that a little bit more? What inspired you to establish content marketing agency? And how do you see, uh, you know, since you started, how do you see the marketing industry evolving from where you've been to where you are today?
Yeah, well, I'll kind of give you the short version of how we got to Content Monster today. And that starts with my background as a creative. Before being a creator was a thing, I've always been involved in creating video or photo or audio, and I had a career in radio. And then that changed into a parallel life of me being a creative by evening and even touring as a DJ and being an executive by day, being a marketer. And so those two worlds were separate for many years until about 2017-ish or so, maybe soon before, when I guess because of the way the technology of marketing and the internet made it so that the creative worlds and the marketing worlds began to merge more. And oddly enough, I was given the title of the company I was working for as digital marketer. I actually had to look it up to see what is a digital marketer? Like, where did this term come from? And I realized it was the things that I'd been doing during my day job, which is I've been doing analytics and databases and crunching numbers from a marketing standpoint. But I also had a chance to bring in my creative side and create video and content and push it through social to drive those marketing channels. And so 2017, I did a project for the company I worked for. I was a marketing director. I needed some video, and I did one video for us to use internally with my own time, my own equipment, because I needed it and didn't have time to go out and find an agency. And then I sent that same project out to other agencies to say, what does it cost to produce this? And what I found was those agencies were a bit, what I would say, old school in terms of their methodology.
Mm.
They thought at that time producing video for a business looked a lot like creating commercials, which even in 2017, it was like you bring out a big truck full of equipment and a crew and cameras and booms and hot lights, and all that stuff was overkill. Like if you were making a car commercial, maybe, and that's at a corporate level, but not for a company, especially a tech company's business video. So we began making videos, primarily talking head videos, some scripted scenario videos for product marketing and product launches. But the bottom line was we took that creativity and combined it with the current technology, which meant smaller cameras, LED lights. Just there was always more ways, and there's still, even today, we're always pushing the limit of finding faster, efficient ways to create the same quality by using technology, but not having to look at how it was done or has always been done. So in a nutshell, that's how we got to Content Monster now, is by always and continuing to push the envelope of technology.
Very cool. So it's obviously an ongoing journey, and you've seen a lot of success since you've been involved. Um, in terms of standing out, because again, for the companies that come to you, they like to do video, and video is obviously it's very powerful. We see all these different platforms, and people talk about if picture can say 1,000 words, video can do 10,000 or more, right? So the video content is very powerful. Again, some companies might struggle to find a voice. Like, again, depends on the size. If they're not a corporation, maybe medium-sized company, like getting in front of the camera, telling your story. So what would you say is for you, from your personal experience, like challenging the most in terms of standing out in a marketplace for medium-sized businesses? What do you see their struggles are?
Well, we found that the larger the business we work with, the more compliance comes into the picture, the more they worry about what their employees or even executives will say. And it is important to have guidelines of what your brand voice is. But at the same time, we also know that people enjoy watching people. They want to learn from people, buy from people, be educated by companies, but by the face of the people of the company and not the brand of the logo. So we have this conundrum here of how do we have a corporate brand? How do we stay in compliance, but also let the people, our people within the company, be the face and the voice and the personality of the company? So that challenge is at the root of the whole idea of doing video for businesses. So I think to begin to uncover a solution to that, it is to communicate to your team or to those people who may be your voices or faces what your brand is, what your structure is. Give them a framework. You don't have to jump all in and say, "Hey, everybody, go do video." That's a bit risky the bigger the company gets. But
Mhm.
what you can do is pick your brand ambassadors, give them a framework, and give them freedom within that framework to show their personality and promote the business. Often you see that with higher executives because they have more on the line, they have more to risk
Yep.
to say the wrong thing, but they also have a better understanding of the company. And that's where we got to fix. We have to fix the situation where only the highest executives have a deep understanding of the company's heart,
Mm.
where they're going and what they're doing. And those higher level executives can speak fluently on the company and its voice because they've had the time and access to that information. What we're lacking is employees on lower levels getting access to understanding the heart of the company. Too
Mhm.
often they're given their tasks, their jobs, they're being told, don't come to this meeting. You don't need to know about that. That's not for you. The result is they don't feel included in the
Mhm.
message. And the end result is when they are asked to do or when they are needed, whether they're asked or not, if they're needed to do video, they don't understand the essence of the company. So that's where we got to work on. We got to work on getting companies to allow their message to be told and understood by larger communities within their organizations, within their companies, so that they can be a voice or a face for the company.
Mm. Very interesting. I didn't know that. That that's obviously it's a challenge, and I believe it depends again on the size because I see some of the brands that I follow, maybe they're insurance, they're in real estate, whatever industry they might be. They're the face of the brand, right? So they're the CEO, they're the decision maker, the founder of the company. And in some cases, again, and they might have couple hundred more employees, but you probably have in mind these bigger corporations, right? So it really depends, but I do agree with that everybody should be on board. Well, not everybody, maybe a certain department, maybe it's a marketing department, maybe a dedicated group of people that are going to be trained and kind of become part of the company and really know what's happening in the company so they can speak on video more freely and confidently in regards of just putting that message out and obviously tell the story better rather than just keeping them outside. For the
Right. And
individuals.
when you have, I was going to add to that, when you have an organization, sorry about that, when you have an organization that's in a regulated industry, whether it be finance or medical, healthcare, those industries have to be a lot more strict about their frameworks, right?
Yeah.
So my suggestion to them is, once you find those key people who can speak for your company, give them a framework. We're working with the organization right now in the financial industry, and each individual is tasked with creating video. But what we're doing is providing them a script with some fill in the blanks for them to add their own personality to it within a framework. And then our producers also kind of watch to make sure they don't go too far. But the idea is, and the result will be or is that they are creating video with their own personality, but it's also kept within compliance of the larger organization. So that
Mhm.
is one way to step into it by giving the personality of your people, but also having a framework for them to work into and be safe, especially in those regulated industries.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks for adding that. Regarding the scripts, Lee. So what do you mean by scripts? So let's say I'm a company. I provide, let's say, insurance. So would you come up with a script for me in particular based on other case studies or just that you had experience by working with insurance companies before, and that's going to be a similar, obviously, custom script for me personally for my company, or it's going to be based on current trends, video trends, or anything that's popular right now that could capture audience attention?
Well, it depends on the message that you have in your script. Depends on what message your marketing team and your company brand is trying to communicate at that moment. So you may have different types of scripts. It may be a personality get to know me script, right? Like, hi, I'm John Smith and I do this for this company. It may be based on a product, like, hey, did you know our new product does this? It could just be a simple customer education about the industry, like, the industry is heading in this direction. Our research has found that, et cetera, et cetera. Once that script is written in a generic way, then you inject fill in the blanks for each individual person. For example, the blank could be add in your experience or your years of experience, or the research, your take on the research, something like that, to where that person can inject their personality. And that way you can satisfy the areas of your business that are going to be careful. Like, you can make sure that compliance gets a chance to understand what's going on, marketing gets their message in there, the company brand gets in there, and most importantly, the personality of the individual gets in there. So you want to satisfy those four areas to make sure that your message serves the business, but also serves the human connection of having a person talk to your brand.
Mm. And it's definitely a fine line. I mean, uh, you know, through my personal experience, obviously I've been guilty myself. I've been producing too much of a video content. Obviously now with the podcast, that's a different story. I'm kind of coming back to that, and just want to highlight industry experts like yourself, and what they do, and kind of bring more people towards them. But it's a fine line to really to understand how to tell this story and captures people's attention with a proper call to action, right? So obviously, and there's companies and people like yourself who can help individuals to do that. In terms of in smaller individuals, so let's say we have an influencer, 100,000, couple 100,000, maybe a million followers on any of those platforms. What would you say? Well, again, maybe I'll take that back. Maybe it's a starting individual, because those people maybe already know what they're doing, and for them maybe it's not an issue anymore. But for a starting individual, like, what would you say in terms of the content, if it's video specific? So would you recommend like this format? Is the podcast better? Should they do video of themselves and tell their story, then repurposing content, any of that nature? So what works the best right now in all these variety of markets?
So my suggestion for anyone starting to create content is, first of all, start in the format that is most comfortable for you and that you will most likely be consistent with. So if you're a writer, start writing. If you're okay with being on camera, start creating video on camera. If you're a talker or a very good listener, even more importantly, start a podcast. But the most important part of that is, once you start, don't force yourself to feel like you have to publish everything you create,
Mm,
right? So if you do a video with no intention of publishing it, then the pressure lowers and you focus on doing the video. And say you do one, two, you get 10, 15 videos. Eventually you're going to be like, wow, that last thing I said was so good. I can't keep it to myself. I must show it to the world. So at that point, you've not only gotten better at doing it, your comfort level's risen, and you begin to realize what your voice is. So whether it's written or audio or video, the first thing is to just create. Just begin creating. Don't worry about ever publishing it. Just begin creating it, because eventually you'll have content that you can't wait to publish. Then
mm,
you'll have your groove and you can keep on publishing within that lane. And again, make sure it's a lane you feel comfortable with being consistent.
mm,
If you can create a great video, but it's only going to be once a month, but you can write every single day, start writing. And then at the same time, do the video or the audio as you become more comfortable, as you have your systems in place. Like, how are you going to edit it? Who's going to edit it? Do you edit on your phone? Do you have software? Those things will come into place as you do the work. And then eventually you'll get a pattern and you'll get a flow and you'll begin creating more content. And most importantly, you'll fine tune your message and find the audience that is resonating to your message.
Yeah. So, because I've been mentioning that in a previous episodes when I was talking with an individual here on a show, that a lot of people, they're just chasing numbers, which of course, who doesn't want to have, for example, be in a position like one of the Kardashians and have millions and millions of followers that are really raving fans. A lot of those millions of people are really raving fans. But as you know, through my personal experience and just seeing what other brands do, they focus on the core people, right? So what you're describing, just finding your audience, focusing on those smaller numbers, 10,000 plus people maybe, but keeping them, as a core people and growing that. But I like the mindset hack that you just gave, just create a content without because I've been in that position where you create content and you have pressure on you, like you already know there's going to be eyeballs, you already so it doesn't help to perform, right? So having that mind hack is okay. I'm not going to put it out. I'm just going to provide value, and it's not even going to be posted. And whatever it comes out, if it comes out great, you can post it. That's very smart.
Yeah, and capture everything. I mean, like right now, we're having this conversation. It'll be an audio conversation, maybe video, but I'm also having other cameras rolling right now. I'm capturing the content.
Yeah.
During my day, I may capture a clip of me walking or working out or in the office. That clip, who knows how I'll use it, but what if tomorrow I have a post and I want to say my day consists of, or yesterday I was in the office and I did so and so. Wouldn't it be great to actually have a clip of that from yesterday, that B-roll of me doing that thing? So sometimes it's just a matter of capturing B-roll of your life or capturing those moments. And then later on, they can be put together. Often we forget that content creation, in most cases, other than live, is editable. So what you say does not have to be perfect. It can be fixed. Your timelines can be fixed. What you say can be fixed. What you write can be fixed. So always remember that unless you're live, then it can be edited, and that makes a lot less pressure for you when you create content.
And it's never going to be perfect. I mean, it's not a one of those fancy commercials that you've been talking about. It's not a BMW commercial that's going to be played on TV. Like, you're talking with people, so it doesn't have to be.
Right.
It doesn't even have to be perfect, I think, right? The more real, because I believe people are leaning more towards realness these days, right? Because there's a lot of uncertainty happening in the marketplace. We've seen stories of brands that just portraying to do this and they're not this. So being real and authentic, those are two words, right? But for people out there who you're saying, okay, like doing a bunch of be reals sounds great, just creating content on a day-to-day basis, posting that. How much of that do you think, as a company or individual, you do that per day? Like, is there a certain number that you're aiming for, or just whatever comes out to?
No, my personal tactic is to capture it. And that's the hardest part. It's just capturing it. Like,
Nice.
why am I recording this clip of me on the treadmill? Because there may be a case where I need to mention something about, I don't know, continuing on your journey, or sometimes your journey has to, be automated, something where that treadmill may come in handy. I capture that.
And you just store it
Given that
somewhere in a hard drive for people to be like, oh, that's
yeah, on
separate
my
folder,
phone.
treadmill folder, and go and pick it up.
Exactly. In fact, I did a photo shoot session for thumbnails, and I did, I think, 5 outfits, and each outfit had probably 24 expressions, and they're all in a folder for my content team to use when they need it. So if I need to have a thumbnail made with me pointing at something, they'll find the right expression, the right outfit, and they'll make it without me having to come back to that. That was done months ago in about an hour. It's done. I don't have to go back to that again. So sometimes it's just a matter of thinking smart too. I mean, the strategy is definitely a part of it. Having someone to help you understand what the strategy is can save you a lot of time.
Yeah. For saving time, would you say in the future, you personally, as individual, as your own brand owner, right? Would you consider, or would you propose somebody to, let's say, for the photo shoots, instead of doing 5, 10 different outfits and doing these different poses, maybe just do one, feed it to AI, and just tell it, smile, frown, whatever. Like, would you say that's the future, that people can save even more time, or would you still kind of follow just traditional path?
No, I would absolutely do the AI.
Yeah.
So and the thing is, you have to balance what works most efficiently for you. So for me, I have all the equipment. I'm sitting here in front of a high quality camera. It was nothing for me to do that because the equipment's already here. But if you don't have the equipment, then AI is a faster route. And I'm all for efficiency, the most productive route, not the one you're in love with or the one that's trendy or the one that is easiest for you, but the one that is most efficient for you or your team or your business. So, in terms of AI, we're always pushing the limits of what we can use AI for to be more efficient. And you mentioned earlier the authenticity, and so I think what we're going to head into in terms of AI is a period where people are going to crave those perfect imperfections, those pauses, those those gaffes, those, facial expressions that AI hasn't caught up to yet. Now, at the speed at which things are changing in AI, we'll have those things within the next year, probably. We'll have those perfect imperfections where, and I've already seen it in audio. I've seen it in audio already where breaths and pauses and ums are already being added artificially to make it sound more real. So we're already there with audio. Video, I think, will be there within the next year to be just as perfectly imperfect as a human is. I predict there'll be a sliding scale in most softwares that say, how perfect do you want to be? The top of the scale will be no ums and no gaffes and no breaths. The bottom will be pretty much human with all the mistakes, maybe even added in some mistakes. So we're heading there. So efficiency is the goal. We're going to see a year or two of AI trying to be imperfect enough to mimic humans' imperfections.
When you think about this, just sounds crazy. But we're gonna get to the point eventually. I think as I said, when you create these videos and you create them and you say, okay, I'm not gonna post it. Let me just provide value. The mind's a trick, right? Um, I'm just, I'm excited, but I'm also afraid at the same time, a little bit. Because I can think about individuals and companies that they're going to start putting out video content that's just going to be perfect every single time. Like it's going to be this BMW, commerce that I was talking about. It's going to be like that every single time, like those videos. So this is going to be crazy. So imagine. So it might become in some cases, which I don't know if it is going to be that crazy, but some certain company is going to start monopolizing the industries, right? Because of all
Yeah.
this attention that they're able to grab. So for the rest of the companies that either are not embracing AI, not using the tools, using the old way of thinking or whatever, so this could be a really tough time, right?
Right. And you mentioned the old way of thinking. So, I also mentioned a car commercial. So imagine this. Imagine it's that car commercial and you look at two different car commercials, one from, I'll mention the brand, one from Mercedes and one from BMW, for example. Let's say, for example, to the consumer, both videos look the same. They both were a car riding around a mountainside at sunset and the car is glistening. They look the same from a consumer standpoint. But what happens if one of those car companies made that video in a fraction of the time and a fraction of the cost, right? Let's say it took them 1/100th of the time and cost that the other one did. What that's going to happen in terms of the scale of the economy is that one company will produce many more commercials. They'll do many more A/B tests on what works best. They'll just dominate the market based on the efficiency. Now, the consumer will be clueless to any of this. And if those companies don't realize that their competitor utilize AI to work faster, if they're stuck on the aesthetics of how does it look, that's old school. They should be stuck on more. How did you achieve the same look faster, cheaper, and have the same experience for the customer? And that's going to happen, I think, in all areas that are touched by AI, which will be almost everything. It's exactly what we're doing. We're thinking, okay, how can we create the same quality of video or audio, but do it faster, more efficient, which we can pass down to our customer. And that's going to be the differentiator. When you're competing against another company for cost or for time, or even for attention, I'm talking about marketing. Marketing is attention. And if you can create 10 times more good content, you're going to get more attention faster than the other company who's making things either too perfect or too slowly.
Mm. And I just wanted to ask you, I'm still speaking with the lead judge right now, right? This is not an AI avatar. This is still Lee, right?
It's funny you said that because you are, but within a year from now, you'll have to ask that question again.
Yeah.
We did make avatars of me this week, in fact, and you'll be seeing videos of me where we're debating where in that video do we reveal if this is me or not, because we already have our editors right now are working on videos of me that I was not involved in, and the part that's happening right now is that there are imperfections that are obvious imperfections, like one or two odd mouth movements or an odd hand movement, but that can all be covered up with B-roll, right? So,
Mm.
and those videos are about 90% accurate to where even I wouldn't know it wasn't me. So it's that 10%. And at the speed of evolution of AI right now, that 10% will be gone within the next year. So, I've heard audio of my own voice and thought, oh my God, I could have sworn I said that, but I didn't say that. And you mentioned fear earlier. That is kind of fearful. I mean,
Yeah.
even my son said, Dad, what happens if someone else gets into this account
Mm.
and creates this video of you?
Yep.
Um, and there's two sides to that. There's one, how do you defend to say that I did not say that when you really
Mm.
didn't? And the other side is people who will say things and then say they didn't say it. Say, oh, that was AI. I didn't say that. So those are the problems we're going to have to face in the next few years. Is again, we're heading into a area where we were already heading into an area where everybody had their own truth, and it's going to be amplified by now. We're going to have proof. We're going to have false proof of something that didn't happen. So, it's definitely a double-edged sword. I mean, I'm
Mm.
admitting that I'm creating video of myself of things that I didn't say for business and marketing purposes. So, yeah, there's a risk in that. There's a risk
Yeah.
in that. And so,
Because
good question of asking if it's me you're talking to, because that is a legitimate question.
these days it's very relevant. Um, there is obviously these downsides. So exploring these downsides still, talking about authenticity, for example, right? So do you believe still audiences will feel, even though, because I'm sure it will happen if you're just putting out tremendous, like incredible amount of video content daily, something eventually will happen. Somebody will spot it. There's smart people out there who are
Mhm.
technicians, maybe they're working on AI. They will be like, oh, this is just AI video, even further along as it gets advanced, right? Somebody spot it and say, okay, this big brand, all these videos that I've been following, it's just been an AI, just a bot. And we've been feeding this information, and we thought this is a real person. Do you think this will affect brand authenticity and a brand? Do you think it might damage brands in some way?
Well, when it comes to brand authenticity and the consumer's perception of it, if it's being, generated by AI or not, it really comes down to, does the consumer care? Like, we've
Mm.
already seen music being released by artists that have long passed away. And if you look at the comments, say on YouTube of some of these new songs, you'll almost always see consumers say, yeah, I know it's fake, but I don't care. I love the song.
Mhm.
The consumer doesn't care. So whether it's commercial or whether it's for your business, if the experience or the result is the same, the consumer, the mass of people who consume it probably will not care. Now,
For
those
now,
who are, for now, I mean, I think forever they won't care. What's going to happen is
maybe. Yeah.
your small percentage of people who understand are going to
Mm.
care,
Yeah.
but the masses will not care. Um,
I'm with you.
I wrote an article years ago when, so like, given I was just heading out of my career as a DJ, and I used to always notice that if there's a DJ performing and other DJs walk into the room, even though there could be thousands of people on the dance floor, if a famous DJ walks in, suddenly that DJ begins DJing for the DJ. He wants to show off to the other DJ, and he neglects those thousands of people who are enjoying the party. I've seen the same thing for artists, for graphic artists. They start thinking, well, if I use Canva instead of Photoshop, what will other, graphic designers think of me? They're being artist for the artist and not for the consumer. The
Mm,
consumer doesn't care. The people on the dance floor wanted to dance. They didn't care what kind of equipment he used. They didn't care what kind of mixing or scratching or whatever the DJ was using. They only cared about the end result. Did they enjoy the party? If you're looking at graphics, do you enjoy the graphic? If you're looking at a commercial, does that commercial convince me to move towards the product? The end consumer doesn't care. Those of us who are closer to the creating of it will care, but we're not the main consumer. So
mm.
as AI becomes better and better and used more and more, we may be concerned with the authenticity of it, but we have to always remember that if it's being effective, then the mass of people, the consumers, will not care.
So do you think, an advice for the future self? Would you focus still continue for individuals that's listening out there? Because people looking to save time, and AI obviously is here for us. Is a really great tool, a solid tool for us to use time to be more productive. So at the end of the day, would it even matter for you to be an expert if there's going to be an AI bot out there who's going to be feeding, who you going to feed all this information that they can source on a web? So do you need to study anything and learn anything about marketing and rather focus on AI and using these tools instead?
That's a very good question. Do you need to focus on being an expert, or do you need to focus on tools that can convey the message of expertise, even if you're not the expert?
Yeah.
So I hate to say it, but the tools, because let's look at this scenario. Let's say you're a consumer who wants to know how to fix a car, right? And there's only one or two ways to fix this part on your car. You go on YouTube and you find a mechanic, a real mechanic who's done it for 30 years. He knows how to do that thing very well. And you see him or her talking. Okay, they give you a solution. You scroll up to the next video. It is an avatar of someone giving the exact same answer, but maybe has one more view or angle of how it's done. You don't care. You want to fix your car. You want to change the headlight. You don't care how that expertise got to you. So let's say, for example, you're an auto company and you're able to crank out using AI a 3-minute video for every single part on a car. And there's like 200,000 parts. Suppose you upload the manual for every single part and you crank out 200,000 videos to cover every part of that car. Meanwhile, the mechanic is doing one or two a month because it takes more time to do it manually. What is the algorithm going to do in terms of feeding you the information? Because when you look for it, you're going to find the most prevalent information from the most viewed channel of content. The person who is the expert will not win. That's
Mhm.
painful, but that's where we're going.
It seems like it. That's why I'm asking that question, because it seems like, and I heard quite a few experts in the field talking about this, that focusing on the tools, right? And how to leverage that, because once you get your hands on that, and you keeping your ear close to the pulse, and you see what's happening, and you can focus on that more and see how you can leverage these tools and technology to do more in business, provide more value for people, rather than just, okay. And of course you can go and read and still be an expert. There's time for that, because now if you're using AI, you have time for that. But yes, I'm with you, and I believe that's a very good advice. Again, at least for me, to focus, and I'm sure for a few individuals that are listening out there, focus on the tools. Because future is here, and those who can see what's happening around the corner or about to happen around the corner are really going to take the advantage of what's going to happen around the corner. And of course, we're just
That's the key.
yeah, maybe
That's the
we're
key,
making it better.
around the corner.
Maybe we're wrong, but who knows? We find that we're going to
That's where
find
the
out.
human part comes in. You said the key thing there, around the corner, because now, given, AI can predict based on past history, but I think that kind of intellectual creativity is what's going to give us humans a little bit more runway, before the robots take over, is being able to feel what humans feel and predict what, like you said, we said earlier, we spoke of words like fear and concern, and those things, we have an advantage right now because we can feel things and be concerned and be afraid of things and make decisions based on those emotions. That right now is the advantage that humans have. And I always say right now for anything around AI, we don't know what's going to happen months, years from now. But right now, that predictability is our advantage. The nerve to say, here's what I think is going to happen, because people do want to hear people's opinions. I'd rather hear from that expert you mentioned if they say, look, from my experience, this is what I believe is going to happen. For now, that hits better than an algorithm saying, according to research and algorithm pattern, this is what's going to happen. For weather, yeah, that's great. Even weather's hard to predict now, but I'd rather hear a person give me their experience versus the data. But that's going to change as well. That's going to change as well.
Yeah, maybe the future is going to be just we're going to be sitting here with the neural links, browsing through our head through all this information, and just basically 100% perfect accuracy in terms of information, dates, look, everything. Right. So we don't know, but it might be that crazy. Who knows? At the end of the day, producing the content, video content, again, that's what you specialize a lot. So I'm an influencer, medium-sized business, maybe big business. So in terms of squeezing the ROI on the content, right? Can you talk about maybe some of the key strategies that you recommend for marketers to use to maximize the value of their content?
Okay. So in terms of creating content, especially video content or any kind of content, the best strategy that you have to start with is never use anything once. If you create content, it needs to go on multiple platforms. It needs to go into multiple formats. I'll give you an example. Even if I give a live presentation, that live presentation is filmed. If I talk for 30 minutes even, that's going to be a 30-minute video clip. From that 30 minutes, every major point I make will be a social clip, whether it be vertical or horizontal. And those clips, let's say there's 5 hot takes from that 30 minutes, they're going to go out on different platforms, and they'll be stylized specifically for LinkedIn, specifically for TikTok or Instagram. So that content doesn't just live once as in that live performance, it lives as in social content. So even what we're doing right now, we're recording for a podcast, but we're also capturing video. I'm capturing different angles of this video. The time of me sitting here is maximized. The ROI comes from how much of this content can I use so that that content can be an ambassador of me and, our conversation while I'm not present, right? So that's the biggest ROI hack, is to make sure that you don't use anything once. Even if you post it and that post doesn't do as well as you wanted it to do, maybe it was a matter of the text that went along with it. Maybe it was the timing. There's different things that could to play into that. We even find content that was posted months or years ago, freshen it with a different caption or something and post it again. Every effort like that, whether you're an individual or a corporation, increases the ROI of you creating content.
So they definitely should store it in this case, because I've been guilty myself. You just create a piece of content and you just, okay, let me just delete it, because I'm moving on to the next thing and the next thing. So they should definitely store it for the future repurposing reasons, right?
Yeah, and even repurposing to the extent of reposting. I mean,
Yeah.
let's say, for example, I've got 20-some thousand followers on LinkedIn. If I post it and it gets 2,000 views, that's great, but that's only a portion of my actual followers. So you post it again, and odds are the majority of people who see that weren't the ones who saw it the first time. It is their first time seeing it. So we often post things and think that, okay, well, it's posted, it's been seen. Here's the worst crime that happens is we get tired of our own content. You say, oh, well, I've said that before. Well, you said it in this room or on that platform or in these people who got exposed to it, but you didn't say it to everybody. And it may require being posted multiple times before everybody who will see it actually sees it. So that's the second thing is don't get tired of your own content. That even happens in marketing teams who have a new video or white paper or webinar. They've seen it so much they're tired of it. Meanwhile, as a potential new customer who needs that information to make a decision, but because marketing and sales are tired of it from something you did, oh, that was so 6 months ago, that customer may need that information today. So make sure that you don't get tired of your own content.
Again, another very clever mind hack here. How do you see podcasts? Obviously, I'm coming back doing podcasts. I've been doing podcasts for quite some time in a different industries, in a real estate industry, space, even space industry, talking with scientists, engineers, so just variety of different people. And now coming back from this, trying to brush off all this rust. But how do you see with the podcast? Because now some people might say it increasing in popularity. Some might see it's saturated. Still, regardless, if you're looking to be a thought leader, that's the word that we use, right? In terms of using podcasts, how do you see podcasts? I mean, people should still they do podcasts themselves. I mean, have their own podcasts, invite guests as I'm doing here right now today, learn from them and distribute content that way, or should they go on podcasts and speak on people's podcasts and leverage their audience more, or like what will be your strategy for personal branding reasons?
Well, there are a couple of things to a good strategy for podcasting. And the first thing is you mentioned statistics. You have to be very careful at looking at popular statistics about podcasting because most of them address the entire market, from your local kid who has his toy podcast on his phone to NPR and Joe Rogan. All those numbers are bunched together. And when you see a headline, it's typically from someone like a Spotify who just dropped Prince Harry's podcast. But they're talking about ad revenue. They're dropping podcasts because they're not making them money as the podcast being the product. If you're a business, your podcast is not your product. Your podcast is a source of content. So, first of all, ignore the statistics when they say what podcasts are doing in terms of up or down, because individual listenership is up to the individual. So it is a channel that people are still tuned into. As a business, your podcast, whether you're a guest or whether it's your own podcast, is a source of content. The podcast is a piece of content. The clips from the podcast are content. Even if you're a guest, like I'm going to guest on your podcast right now, I'm going to record it for my own content. You're creating content. These are all ways for us to create information for our customers to understand their industry, their purchase, their product, our service. All those things are informational for them. So that's two things. One, ignore the statistics, the wrong statistics, create content from the podcast. And then two, it's not a matter of either or. It's not do I do video or a podcast or write or do a podcast. It's a and, because some of your consumers are on those channels. Some of your consumers love listening to podcasts and hate reading. Some of them love watching videos but hate listening to podcasts. So you have to realize that if you don't do podcasts, you're neglecting a potential portion of your audience who can be listening to you. I'll give you a quick example. We have one client who their main audience tends to be people who are driving, truckers, drivers, etc. Those people are much more likely to listen because they can do it passively while they're working than those who are perhaps sitting at home if they're a kid or adult at home watching TV or watching video. So you got to understand your audience, how they consume, and make sure you're covering all the formats. So podcasting is definitely a format if you're in business that you likely have an audience that are eager to listen to what you have to say.
Yeah. Again, it's so as you say, so feeding to a different audiences, right? And I've been also talking about it years back where I was working very closely with the real estate industry, so multifamily investors, that type of kind of private investor community. So I saw a lot of them actually, build very successful thought leadership brands. They became thought leaders in their own space because obviously they're looking to for specific people, accredited, not accredited people, to invest in the real estate deal. So, and that's, you have to be very trusted individual, right? Because you're dealing with 50, 100,000 or more dollars, right? In terms of investment. So it's not that easy. That's a hard sell, right? So, but
Yeah,
they have been using video a lot. So they created their own successful podcast. They went on other people podcasts. And what also they did, so they use services, for example, like rev.com, which again, I'm not pitching them, but for example, they're using transcript as a service. So there are companies out there who you can go and just enter the link, and they're going to give you the entire transcript, the entire conversation, that you can create maybe a couple or more blocks out of it, and give value to the people that like reading instead, right? So
exactly.
yeah, so
And
it
in
can really
fact, one of
work.
the things, yeah, our company started out a lot more broad in terms of types of content we created, but then we niched down to audio and video because we realized that if you can create what we call big content, podcasts, video content, from that, you can glean the written content from it. And as you said, you can take that information, the audio conversation, the video conversation, the transcript from that, especially with the use of AI, can be easily transformed into a good blog article. And the advantage of doing it from a conversation as opposed to just writing it is that Google loves opinions and expert language that you will get from a conversation. There are words and opinions and forward looking thoughts that you and I will have during a conversation that a writer who's trying to write on this topic will not have. So, transcribing your big content, your audio, your video, is a huge plus in terms of creating written content. And that's the kind of content we create now. We create written content, but only as a result of the big audio and video content.
100%. Uh, for the people out there, Lee, what would you say? Because I'm sure there's individuals out there who are listening right now. And look, I'm one of those people, right? I think like having a lot of content, creating, be reels, and just having content on a day-to-day basis. Maybe some of it you created, but you have to record it yourself. Let's say you're one man band, right? So you one lady that's working in a company, right? You're a solopreneur at the moment. What would you say for individuals that say, okay, look, it all sounds good. You said, reposting recent content, if it's written, if it's, transcribe it, videos, different, length ratios and repurposing. And that sounds like a lot of work, right? And it is a lot of work. What would you say for the companies that saying, well, look, I don't know if this really useful and whatnot, like how how do you see the future companies? I mean, is that becomes part of the company itself? Like these days, is that really important, or can you still make it without even being on a social media?
That was the same question asked about websites in 2010. Do you really need a website?
Yeah,
Fast forward to 2012. Do you really need to have articles on your website?
yeah,
You know, rewind before that. Do you really need to have the internet in your office? I mean, these are things that we've asked ourselves.
yeah.
So today the question is, do you really need to create content? Do you really need to use AI? Absolutely. If you want to compete, you don't have to. You can be complacent and fall behind, but people need to understand what you do. They need to see you, they need to hear you. And the only way to do that is through your content. You cannot compete with another company that is creating content and communicating to your customers, whether it be through website or social media or using AI to scale up. You cannot compete against that if you're not creating content. I'm not saying just create massive amounts of junk. I mean, now there's no excuse, especially with AI, to not create massive amounts of quality content that answers questions, that informs your customer base. There's no excuse not to do that. And if you choose not to, then you just simply will fall behind.
Exactly. So it has to become part of your business, a big part of your business. I think it has to become, to really embrace it. Is just like being a business owner. You don't live like being a business owner. If you are a business owner, if you're an ethical human being, you're going to be living it. It's not going to be Monday, Friday, and I'm going to take a couple of days off and not even going to think about the business. Like that becomes part of your life. You just live it, right? So I think
Yeah.
to really embrace social media, you also have to embrace it to that level and say, okay, this is just part of my life. right? And I have to
Yeah.
embrace the content and create it, and it doesn't become so. That's a mindset kind of hack from my side, right? At least I use it on myself, so it doesn't become like a work, because
Yeah.
work is a heavy word, right? Oh my god, I
Yeah.
have to do this, it's on my list. So if it becomes part of your life, you just do this naturally, right? Of course there's a rhythm. You need to get a rhythm and a routine. You have to trick your mind for a certain time. Or what you can do, obviously, create content is one thing. Maybe you want to go and check out some of the AI tools. Or to make things easier for you, maybe you just go to the Content Monsta, where Lee and his team is going to take care of your needs. They do podcast production, video production, content repurposing, remote podcast production, remote video production, and a variety of different things for video content. So reach out to him. I get in contact only via LinkedIn. That's where I get in contact with him. So I highly encourage. LinkedIn is a great place for people to network, promote even your content, find good leads. So get in contact with him. Obviously, all those details are going to be, whatever you're listening or watching this episode, they're going to be in the show notes. So make sure to go and get connected with this man. He's an expert, and what he does is see here, been in the industry for a long time. And definitely, you need to embrace the content. You need it. So go and check out the services. Lee, for you again, I appreciate you really for being today on the show, for providing value. I learned a ton myself, because I'm a learner here too. And the future is very interesting, right? The future is very interesting, and we'll see how that's going to unfold. Also, a plug here: you're also going to see Lee in the Serious Marketing event this year in June, when he's going to be talking about sales and marketing, right? So putting those two pieces together. He's going to be doing a keynote on the event as well. So once again, thank you, Lee. It was
Thank
great
you.
to catching up with you again, and I'll look forward to the
My
next one.
pleasure. All right.
Thanks.
Thanks. Take care.
Cheers.